Hello and welcome to the Blackout, where I get to talk to amazing people who do amazing things. And today my guest is someone that started with one career and was like, no, I'm gonna do something else. Nick Ogden, thanks for coming to the podcast today.
Hello.
So, found out you used to be this audio engineer, and you're like, no, I really actually want to go into selling and houses and stuff. What led to the switch?
Oh man. So at the old age of 29, I've already had 3 careers, and it's been great. Like, I have learned so much stuff. So I was very, very fortunate from a younger age of like 15 or 16 to have a very encouraging double bass teacher. And that double bass teacher took me under her wing and kind of showed me all the cool tricks and all that of recording. And I was like, hell yeah, that's sick. So like, I'm going to do that. I'm going to be the next producer of the world and, really just make it. Boy, did I land short. I landed pretty short, and I went through school, went to a private college, which is now Da Vinci College on Barrington Street. And, I had my own little business for a little while. I did a couple recordings, a couple producing, did a lot of live sound setup. I worked with a international company that did all like the live sound setup for place at the Metro Center, or Scotiabank Center now, which was fun. I can say I like built if you were ever at the Kiss concert here and you saw Gene Simmons flying around, I helped build that spider.
Oh, wow.
It was cool stuff, yeah, but it sucked.
What about it sucked?
Well, when you're working split shift of like 6 hours and then come back 4 hours later and then another 6-hour shift. So you leave at like 3 a.m.
Yeah.
And you're looking around at people that are well established in their careers and you're like, I can't do that, And so I took a couple of years off and quit all that, went to school and got my business degree from Dal, and then throughout all of that schooling, Two Crows Brewing opened up when I worked there for a long time, climbing the ranks, and I was like their operations manager for a while. And so that really sort of established and gave me real world experience, running a business, helping someone run a business, managing people, understanding the interpersonal skills that a lot of folks don't get to experience that young in life. So I was very, very fortunate and just unbelievably happy to have that job. But it just, you're working for someone else very, very hard, and you're like, I have this ambition, I want to do something about myself. And throughout all of this, since I was about 18, my dad really pushed me to kind of look at investing in real estate. And so I worked with, actually the brokerage I work with now, and at the time they were doing very specific high-end builds, and they would only do builds when they were on contract. So they weren't doing track builds, they weren't doing a ton, they're just very specific people that wanted these smart homes, which was kind of unique in like 2011, 2013. And so I worked with them for a little bit, kind of investing and kind of doing some of their projects. And then I think when I was like 24 or 25, a really good friend and I bought our first income property, and that kind of spurred that all off. And so we ran that. And again, another great lesson in interpersonal skills, understanding the vulnerability of people and, having, for lack of a better word, some control in that, and really understanding that responsibility. And for me, that was a huge piece of it, understanding the responsibility of being not only like the person that's responsible for maintaining the physical structure, the interpersonal behaviors and relationships between the actual people living there, because sometimes, the tenants weren't friends. Like, they, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you had to deal with that. And throughout all that, like, I was working, doing my thing, but that really gave me the itch. The itch to, like, help people, the itch to be in real estate, to want to be sort of that like interconnected person, that also was spurred on by that role I had at the brewery, right? Always kind of being like the that major cog, making sure everything else is working well.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it came from.
Yeah. Let's talk about the property you got with your friend. What was it? Was it like a house?
It was an over-under set of flats. So we got our first house, which was a beautiful little property, just off of the Armdale Rotary, kind of heading towards Fleming Heights, so almost through Spryfield. Loved the house. It was fantastic. Worked really well for us. We were very, very fortunate to have a couple great tenants in there. But at the end of it, like, we no longer have houses, primarily through personal growth and understanding interpersonal relationships. You end up hating your best friend. So, so I was like, Paul, I love you, buddy, but like, we really do need to, either figure this out or this is going to continue to deteriorate. At least that's how I felt. And it's like, I don't want that. Like, I would rather have my friend than have this.
So I guess, do you see a situation where you can have both? Not in that case, but like just in general?
Absolutely, yeah. But again, from the onset, and this is, I think, where a lot of small businesses, no matter big or small, what have you, really need to look at themselves before they actually get on the ground and establish those relationships and
This is
establish
what,
those expectations. And
yeah,
that's not something we did. And in
right.
hindsight, God, we would still have them probably, but we didn't do that. So.
Yeah, okay, cool. So I'm in Iceland have these amazing things where they give to their business clients. And then you came in and your workshop was amazing.
Thank you so much.
I was like, I need to have you on the podcast. I think it was like just right up, maybe it was even before that presentation was done. I was like, nah, because housing is super confusing. But the way your presentation did, you kind of broke it down into super simple terms. This is kind of what you need to understand, and this is...
that is the biggest compliment I think I've received in the last little while.
Yeah, no, it's true. Yeah, because it's really complicated, but you simplified it, and I think it was just like a 45-minute thing, and yeah, you knocked it out of the park. I was like, you gotta come on the show and talk about it.
Thank
so
you.
You have these experiences, and then it was like, okay, I'm just gonna go back and actually like work with this company, or how did that happen?
Yeah, so I mean, I work with Press Realty. We're locally owned independent brokerage. Quite honestly, the broker himself was my next door neighbor and longtime family friend. So I got to know the way press was being developed in the early 2000s, and I was like, this is something that I align with, my values align with, the way that we're actually structured is something that really resonates with me, because, there's a couple different structures, the way brokerages can be set up, and some really encourage competitiveness and don't encourage collaboration between their agents, and that's completely fine. They do very, very well. It's just different styles, right? Where at press, like, we have some top producing agents, but like, we are a team, right? If they need help doing something, they can't handle a client, or they are sick, or heaven forbid, or they're away, we have the ability of working together, and because for us it's all about the client. It's not about the competition per se between the individual agents. It's about getting the client to meet their goal and making sure that they have some of the highest service level possible, right? So we can almost guarantee that if I'm sick, heaven forbid, or can't come in, I can hand you off to someone else, and I know that that person is going to give you the same level of care and fiduciary duty and all of this, obviously, that I will.
Why is that important to press? Like, you said it was built from the ground up this way. Why is that important to...
Because we value relationships. We are very much a relationship building company. We work really, really hard to not only create the relationships with our clients, with each other, but also peripheral professionals. So like all your lawyers, your mortgage brokers. So we all have like these small teams that kind of work together. Obviously, like, I have my pool of folks that are, somewhat or not connected at all to the brokerage itself, that I know that I work seamlessly with, right? So if you're going to work with me and you don't have a mortgage broker, a lawyer, or an inspector, I can provide you with all those people and, a couple people from each category. So you can choose and know that you're going to maintain that service level no matter who you're talking to.
Yeah. Okay. So let's. I'm like, okay. The rent is. This is actually before I get into this thing. This is something I don't understand with
Okay.
banks and stuff. Like, there are some friends I know that own homes, and it's a freaking amazing home, and their mortgage is cheaper than some rents, and it's like you're not making more than me. Like, why is it kind of like, I guess, what is that deciding factor where banks are like, this person can pay X amount of rent, but yeah, we're not just going to give you a mortgage?
Well, I mean, I'm not a mortgage broker, so I can't full-heartedly speak on that. What I can say is that the individual payment, or I should say an individual's payment, is very specific to their situation. It comes
Oh,
honestly down to the house that they're purchasing, where it is, the condition that it is sometimes, how economically stable that person is, how they look on paper, because again, not a mortgage broker, but financial institutions, which mortgage brokers work on behalf of, or with, I should say, really it's a very cut and dry thing. There's a little bit of leniency, and if you have a good mortgage broker who has a good relationship with these lending houses, they can, advocate for you and, paint this picture and get the lenders on board. But they are very cut and dry. Like, if you
gotcha.
don't meet this criteria,
You can't.
unfortunately,
Sorry.
but I mean, you think about it, like, let's say you had X number of dollars to lend. Would you want, a great picture or an okay picture to lend to?
Right.
Like, it's kind of bad to think about it that way, but if you break it down and think about it in reverse, it's like everyone's situation is very different, absolutely, and everyone deserves the right to a home and to potentially own their own home and all of this. But again, every situation is different, so the bank has to look at everything with a fine-tooth comb.
Okay, so let me go to this. Now I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, I've gotten my things in gear and stuff. And at what point do I reach out to you? Like when I find a house I like, or what happens?
Honestly, at any stage. Um, I really like working with first-time home buyers because I'm a very type A person. I'm very like, you're going to talk to me a lot. I'm going to tell you a bunch of stuff, and I'm going to make sure that you know everything. I'm going to make sure that you're well educated, like you saw in the presentation. So you can make clear, educated, decisive decisions so we can get you in the best home possible
Yeah.
or investment property possible. So anywhere along that, buying journey up until obviously writing a contract and you are working with an agent, I don't ever want to steal someone's client. That's not what I'm saying. But, if it's your second home, your first home, and you haven't spoken to your mortgage broker yet, you don't know what you're approved for, you don't know what you're buying. Honestly, anywhere along that journey is a great opportunity to jump in and help someone, right? Because we can go look at a home tomorrow, this afternoon, right? But could you realistically afford to live there? And can that home service your needs?
Yeah.
We don't know until we start kind of, banging
Looking
out
at
all these
things.
specific criteria.
Yeah. So I guess the first thing will be like, what do I need type of thing,
Yeah.
and I knock out.
Yeah, because I always push the what are your needs and what are your wants? And what are your expectations? Those are the
Right.
three things that really need to shape your decision-making process. And unfortunately, I hate to say this, but people need to realign their expectations in
Right.
reality,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Because, like, you can't leave there because, it's just not going to happen.
Well, unfortunately, like housing has gone up in price. That's the baseline here for multi reasons. But at any stage, if you want to look at a $3 million home, we can go look at a $3 million home. No worry. If you want to look at a $300,000 home, no worry. We'll find something and we'll talk. We'll get you educated and up to speed and give you the team of support around you to get you where you need to be and make you understand where you need to be in the market.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, that's great. So, we have this discussion. I meet some criteria. I say, okay, this is what I can afford. This is real. It's grounded in reality. What happens from that point on?
Yeah, so let's just set the scenario where you have talked to the mortgage broker. You and I have had a great conversation. I understand what you're looking for. I create a very specific search engine for you through the MLS system, so the multiple listing service that real estate agents pay for. A little bit more advanced than like Viewpoint, for example. And then we really narrow your search down to what your needs, all of these things, so you are focused on what we can get you in. Now, I would even say like 3 months ago, that would be a very narrow search. Now the market's shifting, so it's starting to loosen up. And
What affects it really? Because you know what? So COVID happened. People were leaving, and then at least here was one of the safest places, and then everybody was moving here. That kind of made prices go. But like now, what are some of the factors that affect the pricing, like housing prices?
all kinds of things. So one of the largest is obviously demand. So if supply, like your economics 101, if your supply is really high, your price is going to be really low, right? And your demand is low, so your price is going to be low. But as soon as that supply starts dipping down, your demand starts getting up, it's going to create this sort of tension where supply, where we've seen it the last number of years, is below, supply is below demand, so prices are gone up dramatically. But to reinforce that, the replacement cost, so the actual cost that, let's say, heaven forbid the house burned down, or, a tornado took it out, you need to bring that back the way it was before. You cannot replace it. A lot of the stock, the old stock in Halifax and Nova Scotia, you cannot replace what you're buying it. And so that's also increased, right? So a new home construction has gone up so much because the labor's gone up.
Yeah.
The materials have gone up. The time it takes has gone up because everything's delayed. Like, there's so many factors in this tumultuous world that we're trying to transact in that, as real estate agents, we do our damnedest to get you a great price, make you feel comfortable in all this, but we cannot predict what's going to happen tomorrow. The only thing that we can predict is what's happening right now. And look in the past to tell you what has happened to understand what is happening.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So many things to consider and stuff. So, like, does that mean someone in your position must enjoy spreadsheets?
Yeah. I mean, I will say though, like, our board, our provincial board does a great job of kind of breaking all of this data down into bite-sized pieces so we can interpret it clearly. And there's great discussion. Again, hence why I work on a great team, where we can have great conversation about where we think the market's going and all of this, so we can all service our clients to the best of our abilities to understand the market.
So, just a couple of minutes talking to you, and even on the presentation, it always kind of boils down to the client. Great approach, but coming back to it, why do you decide on that approach? I mean, I know, sure, these guys are bringing the money, but like, it's a house. People are always going to want to live in a house, but you are focused on servicing the client, really focused on that. Why?
It's important to me, honestly. Making sure that clients, and at the end of the day, the people behind, all the money, all the paperwork and all this are happy, right? Like, if I'm going to invest in you, because I invest a lot in my clients, time, it's a lot of time, a lot of gas money right now, that's for sure.
Yeah, oh my God.
If I'm going to invest in you, like, and I make it very clear, like, it's an intimate relationship. You have to like me as a person, and I have to like you. For this relationship to work, we both have to have some sort of common ground, some sort of shared value. And so for that reason, the client aspect, as opposed to the transaction aspect, meaning that, you can do 500 or 100 ends a year, so transactions a year, but is that client getting the best possible service? Maybe not. Potentially, but maybe not. For me, like, if I can do a couple transactions a month and make sure that my clients are handled very well, and then in turn, think about it from a marketing perspective, if I'm giving them really good service, are they not going to go tell all their friends and family? Right?
Gotcha.
And to slightly think of it from a selfish perspective, it's like, I'm a one-person team per se, right? And I can't do all the marketing in the world. but other people can do it for me,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if I can service these people really, really
They were like,
well,
you need to talk to that guy.
yeah, and it's again, it's slightly selfish, but it's also slightly honest,
Mm.
right? Like my three pillars are transparency, education, and communication, right?
Ah.
So like if you need to know something and you want to know something, just ask.
Mm.
If you want to know why this is happening like this or what's going on, just ask. And I'll
Mm.
tell you, I'll probably give you 5 reasons,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
make sure that you understand those reasons.
Mm. Wow. Yeah. No. So, I mean, we have the discussion and pretty much made the criteria. We just go and let the bank take care of it. It's that what happens?
Kind of ish. Kind of ish. So I mean, let's say we found you a home. You've talked to a great mortgage broker. Either I've recommended or you brought them in or what have you, a family friend, doesn't matter. The mortgage broker and I talk quite a bit to make sure that we're both on the same page to get you approved and all the money you need to get this home.
Mm-hmm.
Then my job is kind of done once you have an accepted offer, kind of done. The next biggest job to be done is between the lawyers and the mortgage broker, kind of. The mortgage broker is then going to secure your money because even if you have a pre-approval, that's still pending on some house. Doesn't matter, right?
Oh.
The pre-approval just gives you a ballpark of what you can start looking around in
Yeah.
price. But the mortgage broker then really takes that and solidifies, gives you a letter of financing to guarantee that, yeah, come closing day,
This one
there's
is
going to be
good to
money in
go.
that account for
Yeah.
you. Like, so they do that. And then the lawyers also kind of, review all the documentation, review if there's any easements or right of ways or any liens against the house, make sure
Mm-hmm.
that the property is held free and clear. And then, we firm up, all of our buyer conditions are met.
Mm-hmm.
And then we kind of sit and wait-ish. Hopefully you start packing because that's always a big chore.
Yeah.
And then come closing day, we, do a walkthrough, make sure it's all good. You tell me that you're happy with the condition of the house. I tell the lawyers, hey, you have received those funds. Great. You haven't. Well, I'm going to talk to the mortgage broker, make sure you get those funds.
Mm-hmm.
And then the lawyer is actually the peak of all of this work. The lawyer is the one that actually signs over that deed. I don't do that.
Oh.
I can make sure that everyone's talking to each other. Everyone's getting this vehicle of a transaction to where it needs to go,
Mm-hmm.
but that lawyer is getting across the finish line.
Oh.
They're that last push. They're that last signature. They're that last look to make sure everything's tickety-boo and you can actually buy this home.
So you mentioned inspectors.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that sounds like really it's super important to do. Why is it that sometimes either inspectors or people that are bringing an inspector, like they miss something, where a situation where you get a place and then we're like, oh, there's some freaking thing that wasn't on. What happens in situations like
Yeah,
that?
so I mean, an inspector can only do so much, right? They cannot legally, I mean, I'm sure they could, but they cannot legally start taking down walls. They can't take up the flooring. They are not going to take apart your kitchen. What they're there to do is to do a very thorough, broad stroke investigation of that property, outside in, hard materials and soft, to really make sure that you have a good snapshot of the general shape or condition that this home is in. If there's some things that they missed, you do sign a release and you do sign some documentation saying that you are responsible from anything else outside of this, unless it's something extremely major, like I don't know, like they missed the roof, right? Big thing to miss,
Yeah.
like if the shingles looked fine, they're like, oh, that's okay, but the sheathing underneath, so like that plywood's all rotten, huge problem, right?
Right.
Huge problem. So some will insure to make sure that you get some sort of compensation for that, not all. So that's sometimes what happens. And I mean, if you look at markets like Ontario for the last couple of years, a lot of transactions were happening without inspections.
What?
Yeah,
Why would anyone do that?
I don't know. I mean, there's
That's risky,
no,
right?
there are a few reasons, right? If it's a property that is is replicated and X number of years old and has been there for a long time and is almost prefab. So look at the West End, for example, like all the London streets, right? A lot of them were built all at the same time. A lot of them have been relatively maintained. So, if you're a confident buyer and you've done a transaction before, you may feel comfortable to not have an inspection because you're like, oh, I've seen the structure before. I've been in one. I understand the deficiencies of it, and I'm comfortable with those deficiencies. So I was looking from a systems perspective, right? Even if an inspector brings something up, there may not be an opportunity
To do it.
to do a price reduction or even to negotiate down or some sort of compensation, may it be replacement or whatever, in the deal. So you almost have to be comfortable with some level of systems work. And by systems work, I mean the roofing, the heating, the structure, all of that, right?
Right.
You're buying almost an organic environment,
Yeah,
right? It's a
yeah.
non-organic environment, but there's so many things working together to make the structure functional.
How about the reverse? Now I've lived here for X years. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, I want to sell this and move to that place. Do I talk to you, or
100%.
what happens when I'm like, okay, I'm ready to sell and shit?
Yeah. So I mean, you've had your home for a while. You either are your family's too big, or you're tired of it, or it's not working for you. I come in, you call me up, and I say, "What's going on?" "Oh, I'll come over." "Yeah, absolutely." And we have an initial conversation, right? Why are you selling? Is it because you did no maintenance and it's falling down? I'm probably not going to sell that for you or help you sell that.
Yeah.
But is it for a reasonable reason, right? Are you moving because you're downsizing? Sure, great. So we walk through the house and I get a good understanding of the condition that your home is in against the rest of like properties in your area, either on the market or recently sold. I give you a really clear snapshot. It's called a CMA, comparative market analysis.
Oh, okay.
Where I give you a really good understanding of timely data of properties that have sold like yours in recent history. So you and I can have a conversation about what your home could be worth. What we list it for and what it will sell for are generally two very different things.
So one thing I noticed, right?
Yeah.
My dad, they moved in, I don't know, X years ago.
Yeah.
Say, I don't know, 200, let's say 200, right?
Yeah.
But the neighbor's home, same everything, because it's one of those buildings where whatever is here is on that side. I can't remember
Side
what
by
they're
side.
called. Yeah, exactly. It's almost like 3 times what it is now, right?
Yeah.
And it's just a couple of years. So that means if they ever decide to sell,
Yeah.
they're gonna sell for 3 times what they got that place.
Potentially.
Yeah.
Potentially.
Sick.
Because the market has shifted, right? At that time, let's say 20 years ago in the early 2000s, the builders built that home for $75,000 to $100,000. I don't know. I don't know your home, right? Then they resold it to your parents for $150,000. I don't know. Because, again, the replacement cost has gone up dramatically. Like, we're talking hundreds of dollars a square foot. Right? That's generally how builders price it. Like, maybe 20 years ago, let's put a number on it, say you could build that for $100 a square foot. Now you're close to $400.
Right.
So just in physical material alone, as long as your parents have maintained their home, they should, theoretically, get a similar price to what it's sold for. Obviously, market conditions and who is in that market actively trading or looking to actively trade have some variance on that price. May it be like if there's high competition, they get 30 offers. Obviously, that's a good thing for your parents, right?
Yeah.
They're going to get a good price for it, an unexpected high price.
Exactly.
If there are 2 offers, there's most likely less room for outliers to increase that price.
That's one thing. Like another thing that's been happening in Halifax, like in the housing, and I'm sure you can see this where, you go on the website and it's like X amount. This is what, say the person's selling for 300,000. Like that's what it was listed for, but then it sold for almost 100,000 extra for.
And so you're kind of looking at a couple things there, right? Like you are kind of touching on listing strategy. So as a real estate agent, we have methods of marketing your home. That's pretty much all that real estate agents do. All we do is market. And we are the facilitator of that transaction. Right?
Yeah.
So on the selling side, the listing agent, so we create a package for you. Like, again, so your parents selling their home. We go through it. I give them a very clear and decisive package of what I think will cause your home to sell, right? May it be through social media marketing, may it be through traditional forms of marketing, open houses, agent open houses, events are more of a thing now, obviously because the pandemic's kind of over. People are kind of wanting something different. That's what we do. We cause the home to sell through their marketing efforts, right? So with that, like, we can never guarantee what your home is going to sell for. But we will do our goddamn hardest job effort to get you the best price possible. And what that best price possible is, the market value, right? It's when an able-bodied seller and able-bodied buyer come together and agree on a price. So,
wow, no, that's great. So how is it? Like, we live in Halifax and buildings are getting torn down, just walking around, just around the corner, there are 3 things being built up. Is that a good thing or bad thing for home, I guess, buyers and sellers?
yeah, I think so. Yeah. I mean, the provincial government has told us that come 2023, I guess, or no, yeah, 2030, I guess, sorry, they're expecting our population to double. We are going to be a 2 million person province by 2030. That's fantastic. We have been a have-not province for so long. We have had mass exodus, essentially, of our young people, right? They're all coming back. Industry is coming. And I mean, high-educated industry is coming. We have some of the best research centers here. Where are they going to live?
Right.
So unless we really double down on our building efforts, our prices will only increase. Going back to supply and demand.
Right.
If there is no supply and there is so much demand, prices will skyrocket, right? No one wants that. That's unreasonable expectation, right? We have some examples in Canada of that happening, right? You have Vancouver, which is a great example, and Toronto, which is, again, a great example of that. The replacement cost of that structure is not what those are trading for. So you're telling me that the actual land cost, that's the piece we haven't talked about yet, the land cost is worth X number of dollars because the demand for that is so high, right? Here in Nova Scotia, we still want a reasonable cost of living, right? We want it to be relatively affordable for people to live here. There is a lot of discussion around how it's going to happen. And I think that's a larger topic than we may or may not have time for.
Yeah.
But one of the only ways to solve that is through building more things, right? And unfortunately, we have had such a clinch on pricing, where those with the supply, so builders, landlords, current home sellers or owners, have the supply, so they kind of control what's going to happen, how it's going to transact, right? So until there's more, it's going to be of that higher price tag than lower.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always say, and this is just by the side, that on the first of every month, Killam gets like $1 billion in their account.
Yeah.
But so as a real estate agent, what kind of advice would you have just for the layperson that's getting themselves ready to, I guess, own their first property?
Talk to people. People are always scared to talk to people, and I think somewhat rightfully so. I think a lot of young people have felt excluded from conversations because they haven't had the opportunity to talk to professionals, right? Like, a lot of real estate agents are pretty nice. Like, we're pretty relaxed people. We love to have conversations. We want to talk to young people. We want to talk to people trying to enter the market. May you be slightly older, it doesn't matter. Like, if you want to own a home, come talk to people that can help you do that, right? If you want to build a house, you want to build a car, who are you going to talk to want to build a car? Someone that knows how to build a car, right? So you need to start talking to mortgage brokers. A lawyer might be too big of a step, but you could. Real estate agent for sure, right? Our job is to help you, the client, transact. We do that through relationships, right? So if you don't have a mortgage broker to talk to, go talk to a real estate agent. I guarantee you that every real estate agent in the city has a mortgage broker that they prefer to work with, and would be glad to give it to you.
So now, putting the show on the other foot, someone's like, I really enjoyed Nick's presentation or this episode, and they're like, I want to be a real estate agent.
Yeah.
What is the process to become one?
Yeah, I mean, so it's relatively easy. Like you need a high school degree and a certificate from the real estate board.
Oh, there's like an exam for
There
this?
is an exam, and there is a relatively intensive course. It is very helpful to have some sort of formal education on top of your high school because it gets you in that mindset to write this expansive exam and study this expansive course, right?
Is it self-study or do you have like classes?
When
or...
I did it, it was in the middle of COVID, so I think it was only self-study.
Oh my
They
gosh.
gave you a maximum of, I think, a year to like study and write it. I did it in like 3 or 4 months, so it was relatively quick. But I again come from that background of like, understanding of how to go through that information and
Yeah.
reproduce it.
Yeah, and then you get the thing and I guess you have to work with someone like Press, or do you work solo, or...
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of brokerages will help you study for the exam.
Oh.
There's usually a bit of like a vetting process from the individual. Would always recommend talking to multiple brokerages to understand who is going to be a good fit for you.
All right.
Because again, people don't really talk about how intimate real estate is, right? Like
You're gonna live there for a very long time.
like you're going to be working with these people shoulder to shoulder. You want to know, you want to work with them, right? And the broker is going to give you great advice, So you are studying, or you have already taken the course or whatever. You will then go talk to a broker at a brokerage. Then the broker will endorse you writing the exam. So to basically say, once they write, they will work here. Or once they get their license, they will work here.
Gotcha.
So then you say, great, and you go to the board and say, I will be working here. They endorse me. You write the exam. You pass with flying colors, hopefully, and then go work with a brokerage. And, you have this relatively formal, structured course you work through. Then when you're on a brokerage, you then take more training. Right. So every brokerage has very specific training
like
methods.
you guys is about customer.
Yeah, ours is all about relationship.
Yeah, it's all about the
right?
client. Man, love that. Nick, is always great talking to you, and your workshop was amazing. I guess, and now having you on the podcast and hearing of the different things that people do. I love the supply demand thing. I want to say thank you for coming, but I want to let you go with this one though. If you weren't doing this, what would you be doing?
I have no idea.
Wow.
I have no idea. Someone asked me recently, like, are you happy with real estate? I was like, absolutely. This has been the best transition, the best decision I've made in the last probably 5 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Thanks for coming to the show today.
Absolutely. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.